Greetings to everyone. On September 10th, 2025, the United States House of Representatives passed a bill known as 3838, which is specifically focused on the United States defense budget. This important resolution was passed to address defense funding. Of course, the bill covers a number of countries, but what caught my attention was the section concerning Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon. First, let's talk about Syria. The extension of Article 1209 was approved, and it was amended so that this article, which has been in place since 2015, originally dealt with counterterrorism and supporting factions allied with the United States, and it specifically referred to the Syrian Democratic Forces. But today, its name has changed to Assistance to Reliable Syrian Factions. Pay attention to this point. Reliable Syrian factions, and this extension will officially continue to remain in effect until December 31st, 2026. So there will be no changes regarding the Syrian Democratic Forces, and their funding will continue, with about $130 million allocated. As I mentioned, the amendments use the term reliable, which in fact is a precise translation according to American requirements, meaning security and oversight conditions, as you know. We also have Article 1236, which is about combating ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Pay attention to this point. In Iraq and Syria, meaning part of the funding allocated to this article will also go to Syria. So in addition to the $130 million, more will go to the reliable Syrian forces. And this project will also be extended until December 31st, 2026. And it specifically states in its provisions that it allocates funding for programs that can be used to train and equip joint forces in combating the terrorist organization ISIS. Now, some media outlets said that there is oversight over the Turkish forces and so on, but the truth is, I reviewed the draft resolution. It's a huge, extensive draft. I didn't find anything related to imposing oversight on the Turkish forces, or obligate the Ministry of Defense to verify Turkey's support for terrorist organizations in Syria or Iraq. No, this is something that some institutions tend to exaggerate, for example. But it might be included in recommendations that I wasn't able to access, in general. Now, regarding the numbers, just so we're all clear, for Iraq, the allocated amount is $212 million and 516,000. As for Syria, as I told you, it's $130 million. But something caught my attention. Lebanon never had any funding from the Department of Defense. Now they have received funding, $15 million, and that's a remarkable figure. This raises big questions for us. Will the US military fund the Lebanese army in a way that allows it to expand its control over Lebanon and reduce Hezbollah's influence? And how will the relationship between the Lebanese army and Hezbollah develop? Because we know that many Lebanese army officers have been infiltrated by Hezbollah groups. So in my opinion, these points are ones we really need to focus on and give enough time to discuss. The second thing, which I also think is very important to focus on, is the reduction of the budget for these countries. Now, in Iraq, for example, there was a decrease. The funding was $380 million last year, 2025, and $750,000. Look at how much the number was in 2022, and it dropped to 222, which is almost less than half. So the funding for Iraq has almost been cut in half. And this indicates that Iraq has become relatively stable, and ISIS no longer has a significant presence in Iraq. There are just a few small pockets left which require a certain type of spending on intelligence matters or similar areas. Now in Syria, the number was 147,941. So it was close to 148. Now it has dropped to 130. This indicates that the situation in Syria is more stable. Today, ISIS is weaker in Syria. At the same time, the Syrian government now has the responsibility to control some of the independent groups it had. Therefore, here, the Syrian Ministry of Defense bears greater responsibilities so that it plays a supporting role to the Syrian Democratic Forces. And that's probably why the meeting took place between Mazloum Abdi and Ahmed al-Sharab, so they could find a certain solution to this matter. Of course, the social media crowd, what we call the new Shabiha or others, are trying to exaggerate things a lot and encourage talk of war, conflict, and so on. But in my opinion, everything is still largely under American military oversight. Now, as we told you, Lebanon is the striking figure, $15 million. This came in an important way. Now, a lot of people come and ask, what do these numbers mean and what do you make of them now? The total defense budget this year reached $925 billion overall. Now, out of that total, 878.7 will go to the Department of Defense. And the other portion will go to institutions related to the Department of Energy and specialized activities that fall under institutions like the DoD. And all of this is related to the general spending issues present in the United States. So the total figure has increased compared to last year. But there is something very noteworthy. Which countries benefit the most? And here you might say that President Trump reduced or will reduce aid to Ukraine or something like that, but no. The amount for Ukraine is $500 million in the field of security. This is a very important point for Ukraine. The figure for Israel is unclear, but it seems that it is considered one of the exceptional countries for the United States. So its budget is always almost open, especially if there is an ongoing war. And it's noteworthy that not even an approximate figure was written for Israel. As for Middle Eastern countries, next come Iraq and Syria, who are among the biggest beneficiaries in terms of equipment, training, and so on. This annual summary gives us a general indication that the United States will not withdraw from the Middle East. On the contrary, it will be deeply involved in the Middle East, especially with the presence of a country like Israel, and the presence of countries like Iraq and Syria, and the terrorist organization ISIS, which it is still committed to fighting as part of its counterterrorism efforts. The United States is also continuing its involvement in the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Of course, President Trump has repeatedly tried to resolve disputes and attempted various forms of reconciliation in order to leave office as a president who achieved something. He has a general peace initiative, but we have clearly noticed today that President Trump is saying he has had enough when it comes to Putin. So let's see the international repercussions of this, both militarily and in terms of security. In my opinion, it is very important for people in Syria and Iraq to monitor these changes, because it seems that these are very, very significant changes involving a lot of money. For example, when we used to say that Syria was at 147 or close to 148, now it has dropped to 130, and perhaps this difference in numbers is going to Israel, since Israel is playing the role of the region's policeman.